How did the Wu-Tang hearing go?
Good. I was on the stand for 4 hours or something. It's annoying.
Wow. Oh wow.
3-3, but it was. I got to meet the judge. You know, uh, the prosecutor is like trying hard to tick me off, and I was like, just like laughing at him.
Prosecutor. I thought it was like civil.
It's a civil case. Yeah. It's a civil case.
Like
The
opposing counsel.
opposing counsel. I was like, he kept. He was like, "Isn't it true you were livid?" I was like, "No." What? And
I
they
don't
played
know where
some.
the case is gonna go or what they think they're gonna do with it,
They
man.
played. They played a video. They played all these videos of me on social media, and I was like, sometimes I gave this long, elaborate answer about what trolling was. I was like, it's sometimes considered. We refer to it as trolling, and in trolling, the user will sometimes intentionally, knowingly, write the wrong information, and in fact, the reader will often understand that it's the wrong information, and that this is a form of entertainment.
A form of online satire.
Yeah,
Yes.
and I was like, the social media isn't the courtroom. It's not a place where people behave normally. It's a place where people are silly, they're defiant, all this stuff. So it was I think that it's a generational thing as well. Which I did not mention, which I probably should have. That like this is sort of the way people communicate now.
Yeah,
It's
boomers don't get trolling.
Yeah, like the judge was looking at me funny, and I was like, I know it can sound hard to believe, but this is the way a lot of people communicate online. They're not serious. They're saying all kinds of things. And they were like, well, you said you had the MP3s in safes around the world. And I was like, I've told you 5 times in a row, I've never owned a safe in my life. And like, part of the mystique. Yeah, no, that's what they kept asking. And I'm like, part of the mystique of this album is that it's got this like veneer of secrecy and hush around it that makes it a little more interesting than the normal album. But the reality is that was mostly farcical, and it was something we created mutually with the Wu-Tang Clan to sort of enhance the story. And keeping in line with that was, just something that we did for fun. It wasn't some intent on my part to, if I say on some podcast that I have MP3s, they kept saying, but the files you disclosed were FLAC files. I was like, I just say MP3s to mean music. Like I wasn't that like specific. They're like, where are the MP3s? I'm like, I told you I never made MP3s. I have FLACs. They're like, yeah, but you said MP3s. I'm like, oh boy, these guys are really fucking something.
A little bit slow.
Well, it's just the finicky and what's the pedantic kind of exacting nerd nature of taking a public statement and assuming that it's true, especially to,
Finding expedition.
yeah. I mean, look, they're entitled to find their facts, but like I made it clear that I've never had a safe, I've never had MP3s of this, and they're just like, yeah, but you said it on this date. I'm like, yeah, I did. I guess I did.
Yeah, well, that's the definition. Well, that's the difference between like words written on a piece of paper and something that is said within a context and with a certain tone of voice. And
Well, yeah, I mean, we filed affidavits, and they're like, why are these statements inconsistent? I'm like, because social media is not. It is not the same.
I remember, didn't the prosecution want some like crazy, like they wanted like a list of every person that you sent the files to or played
I
it for or anything?
I'm making that list. I have to make that list.
It's important to make
Are you just gonna put people's Discord names?
It's
Right? I mean, what else? What else can you do?
yeah, it's a bit silly, but
Well, there's like freaking torrents out there of the damn thing. I mean,
no,
like,
not to my understanding.
I found one I thought on
I don't think they're yeah. I don't think those are legitimate. I looked a little bit as well.
Uh,
There are people LARPing or they'll put a mixtape and say this is it or something.
If you had to rate the album out of 10, what would it be, like a 2?
Yeah, 1 or 2. It's bad. I mean, it, and that's to be expected. Like, the producer in question has never produced any viable music. This was like his main project in life, which is fine. But you know, it shows that this is his first main project. It wasn't really mastered or mixed well at all, so like, it just sounds terrible. And nobody was paid for it. It was just like a throwaway thing.
Yeah, it was like some kind of lesser known affiliate or something.
Well, that's the producer, yeah. So he was just a guy that, you know, I mean, again, just judging if he was very good at what he did, people would hire him to make albums all the time, and they don't. You know, he's never made albums for any other stars. And it just sounds terrible, but yeah, I don't know.
Mr. Shkreli, when you said this was fake and gay, what did you mean by that?
I'm sure I'm going to have to answer that question. What specifically is gay about a written statement? Oh boy.
Martin, why are you gay?
Yeah, it's definitely a generational divide.
Yeah, you think judges would respond to that, but maybe they haven't.
I think she understood me a lot more than she was expecting to. I think I came off as like fairly cogent most of the time and like direct and honest. Like, I was just like, there's no safes. There weren't too many people there either.
Yeah, I think if they have kids, I think that might help them too.
The funniest was the opposing counsel going, "What online accounts do you have?" It's like, "I have many." He's like, "Name them." It's like, "Well, I have email accounts. I have an AWS account. I have a Tinder account." I was like, "I have a lot of online accounts. I mean, you want me to name them all? Every password I have, and for every website?"
Was this district court, by the way?
Yes,
Was it Southern District?
Eastern.
Eastern.
My judge does not love me, but I think we're gonna get. She's gonna sort of see my side of it. I actually got to basically tell the whole case, which was like completely inappropriate because it asked for legal conclusion and stuff like that. But she was like, "I'll hear it." I was like, "Look, the people at Pleaser, before spending $4 million on an album, should have asked the prior album owner, 'Hey, did you make copies of this and send this around?' That's all they should have done, and then determined, okay, we're going to take the risk that these copies in the wild are, out there." It's weird to me that the judge is like, "Okay, we want to claw back all the copies you sent from when you did own it, which are like legitimate transfers." And it's just like, what a weird precedent.
Did you have a summary judgment too that was supposed to get a ruling?
No, there's a preliminary injunction.
Oh, well, the preliminary injunction, they got that. But I could have sworn there's like some sort of summary judgment from your attorney or whatever.
I think we maybe filed for one, but this case is going to take years.
Oh my god. Dude, that's just such a waste of money, man. Like, what do they think they're gonna get? Like, I just don't understand their end goal.
I think they, yeah. Listen,
There hasn't been any settlement conference or anything like that, or any discussions regarding settlement, or like.
I can't talk about that, but let's just say that I think they know they have a losing case.
I wonder if they're stunting at first, but just by filing the case against you, it's just gonna like expire. Like, they weren't gonna be deadlines or something. They're like going for it, man. They're just.
No, I mean, it's a serious litigation, serious law firm, but I think they drew a judge that was very sympathetic to their situation, but I think that as Your Honor thinks about this case a little bit more, they'll sort of realize that the only negligent party here is the party that brought the case, because they had ample opportunity. They're the only party interested in buying this, and they had ample opportunity to diligence their purchase. They're regretting their purchase, and they're trying to do the diligence after the fact now. And the funniest part is that it was not Pleaser, and I tried to bring this out in court, it wasn't even Pleaser that bought the album. It was some other party. And it's like, I've never made a representation to you of any kind. You know? So it's just a funny, it's a very strange litigation, but you know, we're happy to see it through. Like,
Good luck, man.
yeah, I've been in a lot of litigation, giving and receiving, and I'm sure there'll be more. It's nothing to be too afraid of. And you got good lawyers. I mean, the CEO of PleaserDAO told me they made a huge mistake by not doing what I suggested. Then he died.
Yikes. Now, one thing I've heard you say before is that somehow the justice system is a little bit inherently unfair because the prosecution always gets to go first. But at least statutorily, given that we have presumption of innocence, doesn't it make, and burden of proof is on the prosecution, doesn't it make sense for them to go
This
first?
is civil. It's not.
Yeah, totally different situation with the civil thing. Thankfully. In fact, in today's deposition, the judge was like, well, why don't they go first? And my lawyer was like, can we go first? And they let us go first.
Oh yeah, I forgot it was civil, my bad.
Yeah, it's just a lawsuit.
I'm gonna say yes and no though, because typically in a civil case, the plaintiff does go first.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it felt like a direct and a cross, so, but that's how it went. Yeah, I hadn't been in the courthouse in years. It was not. Oh, all the dudes in the courthouse were like, Shkreli! So funny. They like, haven't seen you in a while. I said, yeah, I was away. And the guy is like the bodega in the courthouse is like pretty thugged out. And I forgot what he said, but he was like, my man. Oh yeah, he said, he was like, you went in, you came out, you don't got no scratches on you. I was like, no scratches. And he's like, you ain't got no scars. I was like, nope. He's like, you stood tall, did your time. I was like, yeah. The guy was like very thugged out.
That's amazing.
And it was great. Yeah, the no scratches, no scars thing was like that's kind of a meme sometimes in prison where they're like, nobody fucked with you, you know, you know, you did fine. Because like there's guys that go in prison and like, I saw one crazy scar called the telephone scar. And it goes from ear to mouth. And it's like for snitches.
It's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a hood thing. So
Hold the glass and got a smile too.
there you go. And you know, I've seen all kinds of shit. And so like that, like when he said that, I was like, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about.
Being in front of a judge kind of still stress you out at all?
$1.50 is another phrase. Well, they also had a $1.90 or 190, which is the water temperature. So if you really want to fuck somebody up, you take the 190, toss it in their face, and then shank them. It's a good strat. You know, it's like in League of Legends, you might want to charge the Q first before you hit the W. Something like that.
This.
Yeah, locking a sock is always there. I stayed with a lock and a sock at all times underneath my pillow. Because you're allowed to have a lock. You're allowed to have a sock. You're not allowed to have the combination, so I'd keep them right next